Rick,
Well, Keith Jones, good morning. I'm surprised you're in my living room today.
I'm happy to be in your living room, man. I love your house.
Hey, where's Sarge? I see your grateful son, but I'm missing Sarge. Is he back
Oh,
there?
yeah, here's my
Oh,
man.
okay. All
Yeah,
right.
here he is, hanging
All
out
right. Good to
with
see
his.
him in my frame there. Okay.
Yeah, here he is. So I thought we'd do a podcast that's called "Letting Go of the Need to Have the Last Word."
Oh, wow. Okay.
Okay. This is one when we went to Landmark, one of the things that was identified as my act was the need to be right. Like I'm always right. And it has shown up all over the place, and it has caused me suffering. I didn't recognize it as suffering though, but it's definitely caused. I'm pretty certain it's caused other people suffering. And what
And
made
you, and you,
and
you
me, yeah,
yourself. Yeah.
yeah. One of the things, so something happened recently, and I've been aware of this for a while that's one of my default settings is this need to be right. And it's even stronger than that. It's more insidious than I need to be right. My default setting is you're wrong, I'm right. So it's just like you're wrong and I'm right.
Mhm.
And I've noticed that if I'm not careful, I'm trying to prove people to people that my way of thinking is the right way. I know no one else in the world operates like that. I know it's only me. So
Yeah,
so
right.
yeah, right. So what made me think of this is last week I was having a conversation at a morning workout with two people that had come in, and they asked me whether or not I had any more ski trips planned. I said, no, I don't have any ski trips planned. I have really like discovered pickleball, and so like I find joy like all the time. I think that's why I'm not really doing a lot of ski trips. I've only done one this year. As you know, I normally take 3 to 4 trips somewhere each year. And so they went on to say that, and I said, but quite frankly, what's happened over the last couple of years is whether I'm at vacation or whether I'm, going to work or it's the weekend, it all feels the same to me. Like I'm turned on by all of it. I feel incredible peace and joy with all of it. There's no separation or distinction between any of it. And they went on to say, well, I know what you mean, Keith, and that's great. But, and they wanted to prove the point about the importance of getting away. And they said, um, I just need to be unplugged. I can't be like, no emails, no nothing. And I felt the need to say that I'm unplugged all the time. You know what I'm saying? Like, because I'm unplugged internally.
Yeah.
Like
Yeah.
whether I'm responding or replying or sending something out, I'm unplugged internally. So I don't need a break. Like life is a break for me. I just feel, because I've worked on myself to get to this point, and I felt the need to say that, and I didn't. I just let her say, hey, there is value in being unplugged and getting away and going, you know, to Hawaii or Bora Bora or something like. There's value in that. You come back refreshed and restored. And my ego wanted to say, well, if you get generously 8 weeks, 8 weeks a year of vacation where you take a trip, what are you doing the other 44? Suffering? Like, no, I would rather be unplugged internally and on vacation, whether I'm at work or literally out of town, 52 weeks a year. The math works better for me that way. But I didn't say that.
Yeah.
I just let her statement be the last one. And I was like, good job, Keith. Not that I'm better, but that I resisted the urge to prove a point or have the last word. And I see people do that when they want to give people parenting advice, when they want to give people relationship advice, or whatever the multitude of topics can be. And I've noticed like you don't need to say anything. And really, what I'm not even telling. I'm not. This is not even to the other person. It's to the personal Keith, the personal self that operates at the lowest level, and that is for me the need to be right. What are your thoughts, Rick? About
Oh boy, that's a big topic, Keith. I have that same problem. I had it for years and years and years. Part of it was, I think, the idea that we feel obligated to respond to anything that someone says to us. And sometimes the best reaction is just to, oh. really, how did that make you feel? You know, and draw the other person out to elaborate on the experience they're sharing. But we can't do that. I had a dinner party last night. I had well, half a dozen people over, and I love these people dearly. And usually our conversation's pretty high level, and I look forward to it, and it's great. We talk about books and movies and music and all kinds of stuff that people do. But I was noticing somehow the conversation came around to supplements, and these were people who are very concerned about their health and are proactive about it, and they do a lot of things, including exercise and diet, nutrition, and so forth, to make sure they stay healthy. Well, each of them had their own version of what that involved. So, to your point, it's the idea that instead of people listening to what the other person had to say, each person had to say why their supplement regimen was superior to the others.
Right.
And so what I noticed about it, I just sort of stood aside and looked at it. I take aspirin every once in a while and a vitamin, but I don't have any stake in it. Anyway, I was watching and I was noticing that it was like a sequential series of monologues. No one was talking to one another. They were, I do this, and then the other person would say, yeah, but see, for me, and then I do this. The other person would say, oh, that wouldn't work for me because I do this and I do this.
Yeah.
And I was looking at that and I thought, God dang, I do that all the time. I do that all the time. I literally have to say how it is for me in response to someone else. Well, I think what got me out of that was the realization that the people that I admired in my life didn't do that.
No.
Listen. They just listen. Okay, share your experience. Okay, how does that feel? And why did you do that? What did that make you feel like? You know, you can have a great conversation and have a full experience of the other person's experience by doing that. If you leave your ego at the door and not have to share. I noticed that with just about everything. Travel, for example. You know, I've traveled quite a bit. And I used to have to tell people, you know, that wasn't my experience when you went to Zanzibar or whatever.
Right.
And I don't do that anymore because what's the point? I was there. I know how it feels. I know what my truth about that place is. I'm interested in what they have to say.
Yeah.
Isn't that interesting how they came to a completely different point of view than me? Wow, there's a lot of strange, interesting things in the world, and that's one of them. But the idea that we have to respond is something that is very difficult to overcome. And it goes right back to what you were saying. And that is the idea that we have this, I think our sense of self-worth and value is tied up in being right.
Yes.
The more I'm right, the more value I have.
Yeah.
Well, the reality is the more inner peace you have, the more self-value you have. And if you can kind of shift that a little bit and just say, I have, you know, I know everything I need to know about this topic with myself. I want to learn about how someone else experienced this topic, and that may enrich you and to have you develop some things or look into some things that you may not have seen before, instead of having to do this one-upmanship, you know, or setting the other person right. Last point, I think in a love relationship, my experience has been that this idea of value goes to an extreme. We want to be so valued by our partner whom we love that we think we need to instruct them and help them and show them a way that helps their lives, but also makes them respect us as someone who knows something about this and therefore should have more respect and more love. The reality is, when it boils right down to it, we boil all this crap down. Do you want to be loved or do you want to be right?
Right.
You know, and if you want to be right, you're going to have a hard time finding love all the time.
Oh,
that's my experience anyway.
Wow, Rick, you said so much there that was just so rich. You know, I agree with you. I think that most of it was unconscious, right?
Yeah.
The heart of me having to get the last word to be right was I was so identified with my thoughts that if they thought, as you mentioned, going to a destination, they had a different experience than I did, that they were attacking my experience. They were diminishing what it was for me, and
Oh, yeah.
they got it all wrong. Like no, you need to go back again because it's not like that there, or something like that, or you missed it, or no, people were very kind when I went there. They weren't like that, or people were so rude, or whatever the case may be. Because I feel identified, like my opinion is me, and them disagreeing and seeing it differently is mean they disagree with me. They're rejecting me, or that they don't get it. Like you don't have to say anything. You could just let that pass. Like you said, in a conversation and dialogue, just listen. Just listen. And what I got there was I literally saw myself when I was aware of what she was saying. I felt myself relax internally.
Yes,
You know what I'm
that's
saying? And I just felt and I smiled. And it wasn't a smile that was condescending or patronizing that was like, they don't get it. I'm just going to be quiet here. They'll, I can't help them see it. It was more like, Keith, you don't need to do that. You can just stay open and just listen. You know, you just because it's your way of thinking doesn't mean it's right and they're wrong. Like both can be right, both can be true. Like, and when I did that, everything just kind of opened up, right? Like stop fending, like I'm so identified with my views that I have to defend them because I think they're me. They're not me, they're just thoughts. And that has really helped me expand my capacity for inner peace internally. It's just been great, Rick. So do you want to say anything to close this out?
well, as you said, the harm comes from our monkey minds, doing all
Yeah.
kinds of things that we just don't have any conscious control over. And when you start down the path, you realize what a blind alley that is and how much
Oh,
difficulty it causes you and suffering it causes you. And I go back to the old, I think I've forgotten which Buddhist it is, but there's a Buddhist philosopher who said something along the lines of, nothing can harm you as much as your own thoughts unguarded.
hmm.
I think that's true. And all he's talking about is just being mindful of what you talk about, just being mindful. And sometimes the mindfulness extends into the area of knowing that you don't have to respond. You don't have to argue. You
No,
don't have to do anything. You don't have to do anything.
you know exactly. And most times it's better if you don't. You
Yeah.
know.
And when you do the minimum, like just saying, what was that like for you? And being a good listener, that really helps you cement a relationship with another person, because obviously we're all experiencing these little our own little lives are caught up in our own little reality, and they have a whole different way of looking at it across the block. That's what's fun, you get that other viewpoint. Man, I hadn't thought of that. Wow, that's
Yeah,
kind of cool. Anyway,
absolutely.
I think it's just the idea that we constantly have this need to be right, and that's a real red
Oh,
flag. And if you find yourself in that position, I think you need to look at it, because it's going to cause you more suffering. If you can just shut up and let life flow and see what comes up that's of interest, I think it's a better route.
yeah, and with that monkey mind, you have to just really practice being aware, like because it will seep
Yes.
in there. Like I did well in that conversation. The very next day, somebody said something about something that I was involved in, and they said, "Well, I did everything except this one part. I found that it didn't bring me any value." And I felt the need of like, oh, I got to defend it. Like, no, you don't. This person just made a statement. You let that go, But I was identified with the work that I had put into it as if it was me. No. So it's just another reminder that it takes work, but by putting in a consistent work, a comment like that will pass right through me next time, you know. So I just want to be aware and just bring presence to the moment. So thank you, Rick.
Thank you, Keith. I really enjoyed today's topic. Thanks for bringing it up. It's a good one.
All right, love you.
I love you. Bye.